For the last 4+ months, I have not eaten vegetables. I have not eaten fruit. I have not eaten any sort of grains, any sort of lentils, beans, legumes, nuts, anything at all that comes from a plant. And it sounds really weird, but so far it has worked quite well. Now, I will say it hasn't been a complete 180. It's not like I was cured from all my ailments, but the difference has been pretty dramatic. When I first started this diet, a carnivore diet, and a very strict carnivore diet of basically beef, salt, and water, I didn't introduce or try anything else like eggs or cheese for at least a month or more. The reason I did it is because about a year and a half ago, I suddenly started having major medical problems. I went from being active, healthy, running, jogging, to suddenly not being able to walk, depending on the day, depending on the hour, struggling to get out of bed, constant nerve pain throughout my entire body, just all sorts of weird things that didn't make any sense. It felt like my entire body was just shutting down and failing. And I lived like that, unfortunately, in and out of hospital visits, doctor visits, for about a year with really no progress. Towards the end of that, with no treatment that was really working, I started trying some different things like eating healthier. I cut out carbs, I cut out sugar. Although I'm sure those helped, there wasn't really a noticeable difference that I could tell. I wasn't really losing weight, I wasn't feeling any better. So I found other people doing carnivore diets for autoimmune diseases or undiagnosed autoimmune diseases. And I thought, at this point, I basically have nothing to lose. I'm going to try this and see what happens. So it took me a year of just suffering to then finally try this. It's not like I wanted to just wake up and eat meat one day. I definitely did not. And I did a lot of research before I jumped into it. But once I did it, I was 100% extremely strict and was going to stick with it for a while and see what happened. So at the beginning of this, I was close to 220 pounds. It's been just a little over 120 days so far, and I'm down over 40 pounds of weight. So I think that has actually helped quite a bit, just my mobility and getting around. If I look at things like my body fat percentage, I have a whole chart in front of here. It was the first time I measured it was about 35%. Now, today, 25%. So I was definitely overweight at my height then, and I was actually trying before these issues started to exercise. I had been jogging several miles every week, sometimes multiple times a week, and I was just really struggling with it. Like if I would go for a run or do exercise, then the following day or days, I would be worn down and tired, and I felt like it was making me sick, and I could never really put my finger on why. And then all of a sudden, in early 2022, that just took a dramatic turn, and everything went 180, where it was like, now all of a sudden I can't do anything. It felt like even walking and standing was a struggle. So that's what drove me to do this. But it's just crazy to think that in just over 4 months, I have lost over 40 pounds. And I have gone from the definition of obese to a normal, healthy weight. I think I still have a little bit more room to go, but the weight loss has definitely tapered off and slowed down over the last, I would say, couple of weeks. But it was pretty dramatic for the first 2 months or so. And no, I don't feel like I'm wasting away or anything like that. I'm showing my muscle mass at the beginning of that was around 38%, and now it is over 50%. So it definitely overall has just been a transition in the right direction. I can walk regularly. I still have limits for sure on my physical activity. I still don't have a firm diagnosis as to what has happened. I'm still trying to figure that out, But it's kind of this endless loop right now, it feels like, where I go to the doctor. They don't really know what to do because they've run all the tests they can think of. Nothing comes up out of the ordinary that they can find. They send me to another doctor. They bounce me back to a different doctor. They say that's not my specialty. And it's like, well, what specialty do you see when you don't know what the underlying problem is? But I definitely feel like I have overlapping symptoms of the initial diagnosis they gave was Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is a kind of sudden paralysis of the entire body that you eventually recover from in most cases. I met with specialists who disagreed and said, I don't think that's it at all. Then there are things like chronic fatigue syndrome, which I have learned is far, far more than just being tired. That's not what it is at all. It can be extremely severe and make it where it's just hard to get out of bed. I have symptoms that seem similar to POTS, which the most common symptom is that you faint or pass out when you stand up. I do have that on occasion, but it's not repeatable, which is unusual. There's just all these different things that don't quite fit. They seem like one thing or another. When it came down to it, when I look at each one of these things individually, none of them really have a clear treatment plan or cure anyway. So it was like, well, I need to do something that's working for people that have these types of conditions, or try it and see what happens for me. And I think the reason this could be happening could be lectins in plants. It could be oxalates. I don't really know. All I know is I've cut those things out and I feel considerably better. Now, people ask, are you better now? As in, like, are you back where you were before? And the answer to that is no. I'm not anywhere close to that. I have watched people on videos, I've listened to people, I've read their stories, and I've seen some people that have just had dramatic turnarounds where they feel better within days, sometimes weeks, sometimes a couple of months. For me, it's been a little over 4 months, and I do have to remember that I was in a pretty bad state for about a year, so it could take a long time, many, many more months or even years to really bounce back from whatever this is. I'm probably capable of about 10% of the physical activity that I was before all of this happened, which isn't much, but the quality of life that I'm experiencing now, basically being able to walk, being able to get outside, is substantially better. There was a time when I could just sit in a chair and that was it. Like, I really couldn't do anything. And when I say couldn't do anything, I even mean I couldn't talk more than a few minutes at a time. And if I talked more than, say, 5-10 minutes in a single day, I could be worn out for multiple days after that. I still don't know why that's the case. I'm still, again, trying to figure that out. But this diet is the only thing that I've done over the last year and a half that has made a noticeable improvement. So it could be those things I'm avoiding. It could be that I have cut down inflammation in my entire body, and that's why it's working. So the one thing I can't really definitively tell anyone is why this worked for me. All I can say is that it is working. It's not a miracle cure that has taken me back to 100% in a few days, but it's the best thing that I've done so far. And I really haven't experienced any downsides to this diet at all. Any symptoms that I have of fatigue or joint pain or nerve pain or back pain or migraines, headaches, all of those sorts of things that I do still experience are symptoms that I had right from the get-go, and they have all alleviated dramatically. So they're still there, but they're not as bad as they once were. And I'm still trying to figure out what my physical limitations are someday. I have noticed that it's like I am intolerant to exercise, which sounds like the weirdest thing to say. And I don't want to be this way. I want to get out. I want to exercise. I want to ride bikes. I want to ride motorcycles. I want to do all the things I was doing before. and be a very active, healthy person. I'd love to go work on my strength. I actually had installed some gym equipment in my garage a couple of months before all of this started because I was trying to get in better shape already. And I've kind of just had to put that on hold because I know if I push myself too far, it really comes back to bite me again, sometimes for a month or so before I can kind of bounce back to what I was doing before. The other thing I've noticed, which is very, very weird, is that I do not get rest from sleep. Now, this has been true from the very start. I felt like I could wake up in the middle of the night and I felt like I just ran a marathon in my sleep. I would basically wake up exhausted, which I don't even know how to fully describe other than what I just said because it's nothing I've ever experienced before. Now, I don't typically wake up in the middle of the night exhausted like that to that degree anymore, but I have noticed as I pay close attention to my health, my energy levels, that I still have that kind of weird symptom where sleep not only doesn't kind of refresh or give me more energy, if anything, it's almost like it makes me more tired and more fatigued. And I have yet to find any definitive answers or any reason as to how that can happen. But it takes me a while to wake up in the morning. I just feel groggy, slow. I can be weak, imbalanced. I'm more likely to trip or fall when I first get up in the morning. It's harder to talk. But then over time, and I'm talking like hours of time has passed throughout the day, it's like my body starts to work again and I get more energy. I can do more. I can talk easier. My balance improves. So as the day goes on, I can do more and more and more. So sometimes I end up staying late working on things because that's when I feel the best. And it's almost like I don't want to go to sleep because I know that it's going to reset this cycle and I'm going to feel worse when I wake up the next day. But obviously, I can't go without sleep. I need that. And it is good, but there's just this weird balance where it feels like it's the opposite of everything we're told and everything that makes sense. And that's just how life is for right now. The food that I eat is the opposite of what we're told is healthy. They say, and I should talk about what exactly I'm eating now, which is still primarily beef and salt and water. That's like my go-to. That's what makes me feel good. And that can be ground beef, hamburgers on the grill, just with salt, honestly taste amazing to me. A good steak tastes good as well, and I eat lots of steaks. And occasionally I eat some eggs. I haven't felt like I've ever noticed a downside to eating eggs, but I don't feel like they give me the same level of energy as beef does. I have tried, of course, elk and venison and all sorts of other types of ruminant meats, but I also feel like they just don't work well as a fattier type of meat like beef. Often those are a little more gamey or lean, and I don't feel like they have a high enough fat content to do the same amount of good. And obviously, you don't get fat by eating fat because, again, just over 4 months, I've lost over 40 pounds, and I feel so much better. People that see me say, whoa, you look completely different. Like, what are you doing? How is this working? I'm also using, along with that, butter, and sometimes I use a little bit of cheese, but I try not to overdo it. That's just used in moderation to add a little bit of flavor. And then to help with vitamin supplements, this is a big problem that I ran into. I have been drinking a fair amount of whole milk for vitamin D. One of the things I did after a couple of months on this diet is have my vitamin levels tested. I went back to the doctor and requested it so I could see what am I deficient on, what am I missing, and that way I can kind of watch out for symptoms of those things. Are they going to affect me or not? Because I initially was trying to take supplements before I started this diet, and they just didn't make me feel good. It was like just taking the pill itself would sometime cause a reaction. So I cut those out when I started this strict carnivore diet. And then about halfway through, I found out that I was low on vitamin C, vitamin D, which I've been low on since the very start of this, so that wasn't caused by diet. Vitamin K is a bit on the low side. So I tried to supplement. I tried to find those things in their purest form and take them along with the carnivore diet. Every single supplement of those that I tried made me feel tired again. They made me feel worse. And when I started researching, well, where does pure vitamin C powder come from? So I wasn't taking a capsule or a gummy or anything like that. I found just straight vitamin C powder. That's literally the only ingredient. But then when I research it, it comes often from a fermentation process from corn, which of course is a plant that I've been trying to avoid and I think is one that causes issues. And every single supplement I looked up had those same kinds of problems. So the only supplement, if you will, I've been able to take without adverse effects other than taste is just straight beef liver. No issues when I eat that. It's packed full of vitamin A and has some vitamin C and has some of those good things in it. It just doesn't taste all that great to me. So that's a bummer. But if I really need vitamins, at least I have a solution to get them. I just have to eat more parts of the beef than perhaps I would like. But I think that's a small price to pay in exchange for the health benefits of how I feel. So I was hoping by now that I could start reintroducing more foods, but I feel like I've been so sensitive to different things, I have been rather hesitant. And I always feel like, well, I just want to feel a little bit better first before I try something. And then when I feel better, I just want to feel a little bit better than that. And then sometimes I physically overdo it and I have a setback from that. So then I really don't want to eat anything different because I want to get back to feeling the level of good that I was, which is still very, very far from the top. So I know I have a long, long ways to go. But this is what eating just a carnivore diet has done for me over, again, 4+ months. It has been the best thing that I've done for my health. I have not experienced any downsides. Everything so far has been a positive. So I'm going to keep sticking with it. I'll post updates every once in a while so you can see what the long-term effect is. And if you are struggling with similar issues of any sort of autoimmune issues, which could be fatigue, it could be joint pain, arthritis, I would highly recommend you give this a try because it genuinely works.